Good morning. It's great to be back here for my third Global Retailing Conference. It's always a pleasure to be amongst the brightest minds of retail, the retailers themselves, vendors, and in particular, the students. And speaking of bright minds, I had the pleasure earlier this week to meet journalist and best-selling author Malcolm Gladwell. He actually keynoted at our user conference down in Miami earlier this week, and he talked about innovation. He talked about innovators in the context of Demandware. While we're now a 10-year-old company serving some of the largest retailers in the world, the likes of Tory Burch, Life is Good, Pier 1, Karstadt, House of Fraser, just 10 years ago, we were really an upstart cloud company before cloud was cool, right? Retailers typically put up big stacks of hardware, software, and infrastructure to manage their consumer business. And now we provide a cloud platform to connect retailers with their consumers across geographies, devices, and channels. And so he talked about innovation and innovators, and he said there are three characteristics that all innovators have. First, they're open. They're willing to try something new. They're conscientious. They're aware of their surroundings and their culture. And lastly, and my favorite, is they have to be disagreeable. They have to try something different and go against the grain. And what we're going to talk about for the next little while here is going against the grain. It's really looking at how retailers have invested historically in technology to serve the consumer and how that needs to change. How that needs to change fundamentally given the new consumer reality that we're living today. So I just want to go through some research that we've done most recently and then bring up two esteemed colleagues to talk about the research and then open it up to the group here to discuss it even further. So why do we need to rethink the technology? Well, it's that digital diva, if you remember from last year's conference, that influential consumer who, while they only comprise about 25% of the market, they have about 69% of the purchasing power. Some of that's direct, about 29%, but another is influence spend. So they're continually connected. They're very influential, and they are going to be the bellwether consumer of the future. They're using about 4 different devices on any shopping journey. They are visiting about 3.5 different destinations, and the store is still really important. As we heard, they still want to touch and feel and be able to understand the merchandise before they actually make the purchase. So we need to better understand how we're going to continually interact with them as retailers as they discover your brand, as they engage with the product, and as they procure what they want, when they want it, and on the terms that they dictate. But the challenge is that's not easy, right? We've been investing in technology for many years. That is very product-centric. It's all about we're going to build it, and the consumer is going to come. And so we really wanted to better understand how retailers are rethinking their technology environment, and most notably, the convergence of offline and online. So we teamed up again with the University of Arizona, the Terry J. Lundgren Center for Retailing, and I want to give a special shout out to Professor Anita Bapu and Dr. Charles Lowry, who is a recent graduate from the retailing program and now a professor at Pace University in, I believe it is Vermont or New York. And we also teamed up with the largest and loudest voice in retail, and that is our largest industry trade organization, the National Retail Federation. And we really wanted to get down to this convergence of the store, most notably the point of sale and e-commerce, and understand what we can do as an industry to impact the cross-channel or omni-channel consumer and ultimately digitize what in many cases has been an old-school brick-and-mortar environment as it relates to technology. And so what we did is first we asked retail executives both on the business side and IT side, what are your major business priorities? Now, I've been in research for quite a long time, and I've asked this question about 36 times, and you get very similar results. But one that really bubbled up to the top was attracting and retaining customers. In this hypersensitive environment, in this global economy that we're living in today, how do we not only attract that consumer, but treat them the way they want to be treated with the relevant communication, understanding who they are and how they want to interact with your brand. And then also increase enterprise growth. If you asked this a couple years ago, it might have been more of a cost containment answer. But retailers really are looking how to grow and grow efficiently, especially in the global economy. But it's really difficult to do. So we turn the coin and ask, what are the constraints? What are holding you back as it relates to technology? You can see there's redundant data. There's inaccurate customer information, siloed systems, right? This is how we grew up in retail. We would invest in a specific technology to solve a specific problem by specific channel. And it created a really complex operating environment, one that we couldn't move at the speed by which consumers expected. So what we found here, and these are just some of the key findings, but you have the research report right in front of you, is that retailers, by and large, are looking for a single consumer platform to manage both interactions and transactions across all channels. We know this doesn't exist today. Now, what we found is that nearly 40% of retailers want this. Another third are on the fence. The two reasons they cite is, one, it's hard. It's complex. You know, we're not starting from scratch. We got a lot of legacy technology, and we can't just flip a switch and have this utopian world. And also, it's a really nascent technology market. There aren't many vendors that have proven out they can handle at the scale, the volume, and the user experience that's necessary to make this happen. So what's driving this change? What's really going to make this happen over the next couple of years? Well, what we found in the research is that 70% of retailers will look to refresh their point of sale in the next couple of years. And this isn't a big surprise, right? Every 12 or 15 years, we see a big refresh cycle in point of sale. The last one was in the early 2000s with the Java-based point of sale. And now we're on the cusp of another significant refresh. And as CIOs, as business leaders are looking at these investments, they're saying, why do I want an island unto itself in the store with my point of sale while it's the same consumer I'm serving in the digital world? And is there a single platform that can manage it all? And what we found is that twice as many retailers are considering e-commerce to be that single platform over traditional point of sale. Why? Well, first of all, e-commerce is managing all of the key data elements, functionality, and business rules that matter. Inventory, customer, order, price, and promotion. So it only makes sense to expand that information, those capabilities across the broad spectrum of the user experience. And point of sale was not really architected for the digital world. It was all about putting an in-store processor, having an end-of-day batch to the host system back at the headquarters, and not really thinking about the real-time nature that the consumers expect in terms of what they want for research and understanding a product, or what we can provide to the store associate to make them as knowledgeable as the millennials, as the digital divas who have already done that research online before walking into the physical store. And lastly, many retailers are considering cloud. A lot of the barriers, especially the connection between the stores and the world of the internet, has really come a long way. And they're looking to the cloud to take a lot of that hardware, software, and infrastructure out of their physical operating environment and letting that environment scale to the volume that they need. So as we think about this shift, this change, this massive change, we can put it in this way. Traditional point-of-sale call center for those catalog retailers had really been the system of record for transactions since, again, the beginning of the electronic cash register and the UPC in the mid-70s. And what we're finding, though, is that technology is going to be supplanted by the e-commerce platform. And ultimately, there will be a single platform that manages your customer interactions and transactions across whatever device, TV, car, phone, obviously, geography, whether it's here in North America or globally, and also channel, thereby supplanting some of the older school technology that has been so ingrained in the retail nomenclature and operating environment for such a long time. It is disagreeable, but we need to be open to this change in order to react to and serve the consumer. So that being said, what I'd like to do now is open it up to two real innovators in the retail industry. First, I'd like to invite up on stage Ashlee Aldridge. Ashlee is both CIO, Chief Information Officer, but also Chief Integration Officer, as she brings together both Golfsmith and Golftown in Canada. She also has line of business responsibility for distribution and logistics, and she's no stranger to retail. She's been a CIO at Restoration Hardware, West Marine, and has solved some of the broadest and most complex business problems with her technology leadership. So Ashlee, thank you. Appreciate you joining us today.
Thank you.
And also, Tom Litchford. Now, Tom and I have known each other for quite some time. He's no stranger as well to the retail industry, spending about 30 years both as retail and technology leader for the likes of Microsoft and NCR. He now is the Vice President of Retail Technology at the National Retail Federation. So he oversees two really influential councils that I urge you to take part of if you're not already. The first is the ARTS, which is the standards committee for the retail industry to make it easier for us to connect the technologies that we need to across the enterprise. And second, the CIO Council, I've had the privilege of being a part of and working with for more than 10 years, going back to when I was an analyst. And the CIO Council comprises of close to 100 retail CIOs in North America and some around the world who really influence the direction of technology in our industry. So with that being said, I'd like really to dive a little bit deeper into the content that we're seeing here. So first of all, Ashlee, I'm going to start with you.
All right.
I got to know, what's your handicap? You got to know the product. You got to be into the product. What's your handicap?
Well, I'm totally into the product, but we do consider handicaps to be private information at Golfsmith International.
Well, I want to be sensitive to that. Sure.
So I've been there 18 months, and I got there, and I mean, I play golf with some incredible golfers. It's super intimidating. But I did find out, being a goal-oriented person, that there's this thing called AVID. If you play 27 rounds of golf in a year, you get to be AVID, which is like highly esteemed. I'm here to say I am an avid golfer now, so my handicap is private, but I am an avid.
That's fair. Well, in all seriousness, so you saw the information, I know you read the study. What's your approach to this whole single platform world? Obviously, you're living in a pretty heterogeneous environment now, just how we've grown up in technology investments, but how are you thinking about this?
Well, I've been in a number of retailers, and I've faced this challenge repeatedly. I'm in a specialty retail company right now, so we face a lot of different unique challenges in terms of interacting with the customer. I am a huge proponent of omnichannel, have been for many years. I believe that it's incredibly important that we serve the customer. They are a person, they are a human being. They are walking into our store, they are interacting with us online, on phone. They now have an expectation of it's an Amazon kind of experience. It's super easy. Well, if you are in retail, we have this disparate set of systems that we're very vested in terms of capital, and we have to still deliver every day. And so it's very important, from my perspective, that we can deliver to the customer as they interact with us a uniform experience, regardless of channel. But the problem, which kind of Terry mentioned earlier today, and I think in the study, is it all really breaks down behind the scenes, because it all comes down to inventory and product. And I've got to be able to serve that product up to my associate in a store and empower them with the knowledge of where that product is in my chain, which is very complicated to do, in the same way that I would do it online. And we're using completely different systems. Mm-hmm. So, my perspective on it is wildly important. We can't move fast enough. I feel like we're behind the 8 ball as an industry. The customer is in front of us. And the reality is our suppliers, the software providers, are not there. They either are really good at POS or they are really good at e-commerce. And that doesn't really help us, because it's all the space in between is where we're challenged. So, that to me is the challenge to how to solve the problem, and something we're passionate about working on.
Sure. So as you think about the one platform, in the past, when you were serving different business constituents, you had a business leader to rely on. So
Right.
point of sale, store ops, great. E-commerce VP or head of marketing.
Yeah.
And now you're thinking about converging all these systems. Who are you working with? How do you kind of rally the business around this idea of one platform where they're so used to investing in specific technologies for their businesses?
I think it's an entire, I mean, we have an executive committee, and in the last few companies, it's been that approach, right? I have to have the chief merchant at the table. I have to have the chief marketing officer at the table, and I have to have store ops at the table every single time we go to market, because we're talking about omni-channel is really about bringing the customer experience has to be the same, which is both store ops, e-commerce, and marketing. My inventory has to be delivered in all of those channels at any moment, from anywhere to anywhere. And by the way, I have to do that at incredibly low cost, or I can't afford to sell it and move it. That is our chief merchant. And so we've got to be together, and we have to completely work as one team to solve the problem. There is the issue, however, that's a real issue. I think we all agree to that approach, but we still run the, chief merchant runs the business as a chief merchant. He's like, I don't really want to deal with all of that. Just go solve my problem, which is really where the complexity comes in.
Right.
So we work together as one team.
That's great. So Tom, you have a unique perspective, having the point of view of, again, dozens and dozens of CIOs around the world. How are they thinking about this?
Yeah, I think, well, a couple things. So, and by the way, there's 3 councils now. There's an IT security council, which miraculously started up for some reason.
Yeah.
But anyway, the CIOs, yeah. So when you look at it, obviously, as POS, which typically is a term for the in-store point-of-sale system, as these different channels emerged, what we were looking at is e-commerce emerged, and now mobile commerce emerged. You had call center in your slide. But what the commonality across those really was, at the end of the day, they were transaction engines. And at the end of the day, we wanted to hear that bell ring that says, boom, I got the sale. But what happened is because of, and kind of to the organization you just talked about, Ashlee, is we created these siloed systems, right? So those siloed systems now kind of became a business impediment. And so I think what you're hearing from the CIO Council is they agree that we need to do something about this. We think a common platform or this customer transaction engine makes a lot of sense. We know it's going to be highly complex and a fairly long road to potentially get there. But what we've got to do is start architecting these systems now so that they do talk better together, so that we do know what orders and inventory is out there, and that we do provide, you called it unified customer experience. I think we call it, or we refer to it as the seamless customer experience. And by the way, we've tried to retire the term omni-channel, please. It's just retail, folks. Wherever the customer wants to deal with us, we need to be there, and we need the systems all working together to make sure that that's taken care of.
Great. So Tom, let me dive into that a little deeper. So recently you wrote a blog post, I think nrf.com, everybody check it out, around how how e-commerce has driven a point of sale evolution. Can you talk a little bit more about that and what you mean?
Yeah, and you kind of mentioned it in your 10-minute overview. Again, we created these silo systems now, and as retailers realize that we need to bring these systems back in together, the term kind of, what we're seeing is the functionality across the various systems. Obviously, mobile commerce is very new, very emerging, so there's a chance to impact that. E-commerce has been in place for years, and the functionality there is the functionality that we need to address these customer issues. So my mic is not working. So anyway, so what we're seeing out there, or what we're thinking is that, and the study kind of shows that, is the functionality, the flexibility, the extensibility of e-commerce systems kind of give that as a leg up to be the replacement system of whatever this customer transaction engine turns out to be.
Great.
Yeah.
So,
I was just going to add on to that. I completely agree, and I think the e-commerce platform approach is a great approach because you have all this really rich content. You have video, you have some incredible photography. You can bring that to bear and bring it to life in the store. Plus, it's designed to handle massive traffic. at a level that is going to way exceed what you're going to do in any store on any given day. And so bringing that into the store and being able to use it, works really well. Like Restoration Hardware, we took the external website and we brought it in-house. And we used the website in-house as our experience when I was there with the associates and the customers. But it's a really long selling cycle. So it's very different than cash and carry model, and taking that e-commerce platform in-house and trying to do it at a till or anywhere in the store is complicated. And that's where the e-commerce guys don't get it, because you've got to be able, you've got a number of people that want to check out, they just want to get out of the store. And you got to get them out of the store. And that whole e-commerce experience does not work for cash and carry model. So being able to converge that experience into cash and carry is, I think, really the opportunity there. Nor does the e-commerce group really understand what happens when I'm not connected. What happens when I lose connectivity to my store? I still have to be able to transact with those customers.
Sure.
They have no desire to sit and wait and go, oh, I'm really sorry, my website is down. That's not what they want to hear. Right. So it kind of breaks down on that side.
Yeah, using an old grocery term, all I want to do is scan a bag.
Right,
at the
just
end of the day.
get me
I know
out.
there's a lot more, obviously, but you need to, at the end
Right.
of the day, have a transaction. Go ahead, Tom.
Well, I was going to say, I think that's a great point. I mean, technologically, yeah, this is a complex problem, but we are going to go figure out how to make it happen. But from the business side, exactly what you said, I think that's an equally a challenge for businesses to look at, because again, we've got to get away from these hierarchical silos of where my e-commerce guys are protecting their turf, or my store op guys are protecting their turf. And I love the chief customer officer, because that's what it's got to become. These business leaders have to come together and say, we're focused on the customer, and what do we need to do to go serve that customer, and then let the technology folks go out and figure out how to go solve those problems.
Yeah. Well, let's hone in for a moment on point of sale. So the survey showed that over the next 3 years, there'll be a big refresh cycle that's taking place. And that might go on to 5 years, but I think intent is there from the numbers anyways. Ashlee, what are you seeing? Are you sensing either within your organization kind of new wave of point of sale that's required, or generally speaking from your discussions with other CIOs?
Absolutely. I think we definitely are at a place where we're re-looking at, rethinking, what's the use of POS? Is it meeting our needs? Do we have the right technology in place? And from my perspective in our shop, we absolutely are going to be refreshing. We're going to start with an e-commerce platform though, and I need e-commerce and I need to refresh POS overall. I'm in a unique position with the merger that I've got two companies, and we need to figure that out. But we're going to start with e-commerce, and I expect that whatever we choose and whatever direction we go with e-commerce, it is going to be extended into my store as my future POS. I don't see that as a separate, and I'm going to go out and do something separate for POS, because personally, I don't think that I'm going to get a return on capital. And second, my ability to be flexible and fluid with the e-commerce platform is extensive, and I need to be able to bring that rich content, that rich information to bear with my associates, so they are empowered on the floor. I don't want them in here doing a bunch of stuff. We're very experiential. We want to swing the golf club and help you putt. But I want them to be able to have access to that information in a way that I cannot deliver through a POS.
Right. So the rich content, the capabilities in the digital world, you want to bring into the physical world. You want to be able to reduce the capital, reduce some of the complexity as well, it sounds like.
Well, and I'd rather invest capital in an experience that all of my different associates and my customers can benefit in. Investing exclusively in POS, I'm not going to get the kind of return that I would investing in e-commerce, because that can be extended to my customers that are in their house,
sure,
on their mobile, wherever they want to be. So that's kind of how we're thinking about it, and moving pretty quickly down that path.
Great. So just a minute, I want to remind everybody actually that you're free to ask questions as well. So I have several more, of course, but just raise your hand and I'll peer out and look and certainly turn it over to you. But as we wait for some questions from the audience, I'll ask both Tom and Ashlee, as you just brought up the point, Ashlee, around not only giving information and capabilities to the store associates, but turning that to the consumers as well. What are some of the cool, when I say cool, ones that have return on the investment that are happening in the digital world that you see so much value bringing into the physical world in terms of, I just think about the guided selling capabilities on e-commerce, allowing the consumer independently to be able to really filter down to the product they want more effectively in many cases than the store. What types of functionality do you both see that would be beneficial to bring into the store?
Yeah, sure. I'll start. Well, a couple of things there. Well, you mentioned guided selling. You know, when you get to the store environment, I think that kind of morphs into clienteling, and there's all sorts of studies you can look at out there that show that human interaction is extremely valued. And I think Terry brought up the fact that at the end of the day, people do want to go to the stores. They do want to touch the merchandise, and we do want to have that positive interaction with the sales associates. So the ability to provide information down via mobile devices to these associates in terms of, you know, customers' wants and likes and past purchases and product content and things like that, I think it's going to be extremely valuable. That from the CRM perspective on the front end. On the back end, I think there's going to be a lot of challenges in how are we integrating into the supply chain. How do we get smarter replenishment out there? So, you know, especially if you're pulling and shipping items from store, you know, via e-commerce and things like that. So again, replenishment is going to be a huge challenge that they deal with. And then this whole focus on, you know, the I want it now as we move to fulfillment. And yeah, we're starting to, you know, use stores as mini distribution centers, but the ultimate goal there, I think, is going to get to, you know, how do we do this same-day delivery and fulfillment from that perspective. So lots of challenges from the back-end connections to these point-of-sale solutions.
Great.
I would say that, I mean, the obvious ones are the rich content, video, training, product comparison, product reviews, putting that instantly in front of the hands of the associate, helping them engage with that better. In our world, we want our customer to engage one-on-one. We don't want them looking down, but being able to have access to the information to learn, I think, is huge. That's pretty obvious. I think the real benefit that I see, in particular with e-commerce, is on my e-commerce platform, I can source product from anywhere. I can tell you when you're going to get it, and I coined a phrase called like the miracle date. You know, I'm in specialty retail. I don't have the kind of capital that Terry has in Macy's for e-commerce, so mine's a little more complicated. But if I have a customer that wants a product and they happen to live in the northern part of Idaho, I happen to know, because I also run supply chain, that they live up on a hill that a truck is only going to go on once a week. Okay, it doesn't matter whether it's FedEx or UPS or whatever. They are only going to be delivered once a week. Now, if they want their golf club delivered on the Friday before they want to play golf up on that hill, I have to know that. I have to know the final mile, and I have to factor that into the buying commitment and my expectation setting with the customer. When they say, I want this product by next Friday, I actually have to know the final mile whether I can get it there or not. So I call that the miracle date. I can do that much easier online than I can in a store through POS. And so for me, being able to convert, what is my customer, where do they want this product delivered, when do they want it, with what I have in my supply chain from an inventory and a delivery basis, and be able to give that information to an associate in the store that would then be the exact same information that gets given to my call center associate if they walk out of the store and they call to see, is that really going to happen? And online, everybody has that same exact information. To me, I think that is a real win in terms of the customer experience. And something that, for specialty retail, we feel very passionate that we got to figure out and be able to do very quickly in all those channels.
Yeah, I would imagine in a relatively smaller footprint, that becomes extremely important, the inventory piece. And I would imagine customized and configurable products in terms of clubs and whatever else. So can you talk a little bit about the order? I would imagine for you, the order is so important. So how do you think about that in terms of a single platform and making that available? I guess it's similar to what you just mentioned. Yeah,
exactly. So if you want to order a customized golf club, we can get you that. I mean, we can get you pretty much anything you want. We can also make it for you if you would like. So let me know, and I'll be happy to chat with you.
You know, the Masters
are this weekend.
So, what is the lowest, if I'm not avid, what is the lowest number of the, anyways.
But to order a custom club, there are about 27 different variances that we have to know. And we want to be able to allow a customer to do that online or also do it in the store. So we've got to take all these different criteria to identify what exactly is the specific make and model of club for you. And then we've got to make sure that our supplier is going to be able to make that on their schedule. They have the components and then be able to deliver it to you. So taking the order is extremely important. Getting it accurate is very important. And I think we've definitely figured that out in terms of POS versus my call center business versus my web business, but it is 3 different platforms to take it. It's not a seamless experience, and what the answer to that information is right now for where we live lives in 3 different systems. Right. So part of our challenge is, uniting all of that and getting that put together, and then enabling, if you walked into my store and you wanted to buy a custom club and we fit you, but you're not quite sure because maybe you want the full set. So you're going to walk out. We have that information. You get in the car, you call my guy in the call center, say, I really do want that club. That guy's got to have access to exactly that experience you just had in the store. And then when you get home, what I know for certain is once you order custom clubs, like you want to babysit that and you want to know where they are at all times. I'm in Arizona, so where is my ping club? I'm so excited that they're making this set of pings for me. And so that's where we want to be able to deliver the experience online. Like, you should be able to go online and be able to check out where it is. Where is your club? And that's kind of the experience we want to deliver. And again, one of the things in terms of our limitations are the software providers are not there in a single platform basis to deliver that today. So we sit in the middle between, I got a great software provider here, I got a great software provider there, I got to converge all that together and be able to deliver it back to our associates.
Right. And interestingly enough, the data is very consistent with your views as to what digital services are beneficial in a store. So here, in particular the US, the whole endless aisle capabilities came up very top of the list in guided selling as well. Interestingly enough, we did survey European retailers as well, so Germany, France, UK, and they've really, and I've been actually presenting this in various countries over the last couple of months, and they've actually, in seeing this as a leapfrog moment, and we had actually Cole Haan, the head of digital commerce, speak at our conference just earlier this week. He called it a leapfrog moment, whereas with the lack of investment that's been happening over time, the European retailers are actually looking to just totally leapfrog and go right to a converged POS and e-commerce platform. So the gap that used to exist when I was asked as an analyst in terms of how far behind across the pond is in some of these innovations has really shrunken over the last couple years. It's really intriguing. So let's talk for a minute. Are there any questions, by the way? I don't see any hands raised, so that's okay, and I'll keep on going. But make sure you make yourself visible so we make sure you get your questions answered. But let's talk about the cloud for a moment. You saw it earlier in the opening remarks, and it's on all of the brochures here, and it's one of the 3 big buzzwords along with big data and omni-channel. But can you talk a little bit about the role that cloud plays, and especially as somebody's responsibility is for making sure it's scanned and bagged, the product, how viable is the cloud within the store environment?
I'm a proponent of the cloud. I mean, to me, whether my technology, I know technology really well, so whether my VM and, all of my different components of technology are in a cloud or they're in my data center, to me, I'm okay to go into a cloud as long as I'm going to have SLAs, service levels, and I've got providers that are going to deliver to my associates exactly the experience. I do find, however, that some of the cloud solutions are great. Some of the SaaS and cloud solutions are fantastic. They work really well. We have several of them that our associates use in a store. They're all web-based. So when a store loses connectivity, they cannot get to that. And so I have a store in St. John's in Canada who was closed for 3 days because of the 100-mile-an-hour winds that were frozen. Internet-based access at that point is a serious problem. Sure. So when my store did come up, my connectivity did not. So our store was open, but we couldn't use the cloud solutions there. So there's still that piece that we got to solve in terms of what happens in the cloud.
And Tom, what are your CIO council members thinking about, especially in light of security?
I thought the slide said the cloud is the next closet, but remember IT always put their stuff in the closet, so I think we're okay here. Right? No, I think the cloud's going to have its place, and you're going to have to look around. It's going to vary by segment, I think, by the type of retailer, whether it's a specialty or, obviously when you get into grocery and things like that, I'm not so sure how mature the cloud is at this point to be able to do that. I think the the relevancy here is we can't have disruption of service. So we've got to make sure from that perspective that we can still sell things. And the other one is obviously going to be security and making sure that whatever's up in that cloud is secure. So.
Good. So what we also saw from the results was the idea of innovation and continual innovation, but also the change management associated with this. So can either of you talk about, especially again, as more and more digital comes in the store, we change the way the consumer goes through the purchase path and journey, not only in the physical world, but the virtual world and progressively the converged world. What implication does it have in the store? Ashlee, you talk about that your job is almost 100% business focused, and you're down there in the trenches in the store helping answer questions. When you're doing that, what are the concerns that the store associates have, or what kind of implicit fears do they have as it relates to the digital capabilities that are being offered?
So I always say, I can implement anything in the world, and I can do it on budget and on time as long as I don't have to deal with people. I can make that happen. The reality is technology is only as good as people that are using it. And so it's got to be useful and it has to be relevant. So right now we're finishing up an 18-month integration. I literally am in the stores every single night. I'm kind of a roll my sleeves up, get out there with my team, rally the troops. So we're up all night every night, and I have been for 3 weeks, and I'm in the stores and I'm doing this rollout, and I've got, what we call our POC, our person of contact that's in the store with us overnight. And they're pretty much petrified of change. And we're doing a really large change in Canada right now. I am rocking their world, headed right up here to Masters that's starting today. And we're finishing it up, and they're like, oh my gosh, am I going to be able to run my business? And the biggest issues are just the fear of change, right? Like, which buttons do I push? And am I going to be standing in front of the customer and they're going to ask me a question and I can't give them an answer because I don't know how to use this system? So, you asked earlier in terms of digital, and I would say search is super important to the associate in the store. I find it is maybe the #1 thing other than being able to transact, and they're just afraid that, am I going to be able to do it? No matter how much training they've had, no matter how we've trained and trained and trained, the reality is they are on stage when they are standing in that store in front of a customer, and they want to be empowered, and they want to make the sale, and they want to make the customer happy. And we've got to help them get over that curb. And I spend a ton of time, most of my time is around organizational and behavioral change.
Yeah, I would imagine so. And it's interesting, when I did some research, going back now about 10 years ago, about I don't think we called it digital store at the time, but advanced selling technology. I got a call from a Wall Street Journal reporter saying, does this mean now that you gain all this efficiency, you can lay off all these store associates? And my answer then, it's the same answer now, and it sounds like you agree. I mean, the store associates are still our biggest brand ambassador.
Absolutely.
And we need to make sure we make the applications usable and intuitive, do the right training, but also let them know the process by which, what happens when you click this button.
What happens.
Right. Yeah, I think that was key. Again, I made the comment that the personal interaction, there's several studies that show that a positive interaction there will close the sale. But at the same time, an associate will not engage with a customer if they think they're going to look dumb. So that's where technology, I think, comes in and providing these mobile devices to them and providing the content that they need so that they're educated and well represented in front of that customer. You talked about innovation to start the little bit. I had a thing around, I think you mentioned fear, and the one thing I think that you're starting to see in retail too is this whole cultural change from a fear-based, I'm not going to go try to do that because I don't want to lose my job, to where we want you out there, we want the creativity, we want you trying things, and we know that 99% of these things are going to fail. And I love, was with Karen Katz last year from Neiman Marcus, and her comment says, I want you doing that, and I know you're going to fail, but please just fail fast. So.
Right.
Yeah, it's often hard, as I've heard and I've experienced, it's hard to move fast and fail fast, if you will, on point of sale, because there's so much complexity there. We're seeing clients like Veramoda over in Europe who are testing out virtual point of sale because they're not having to put up the whole stack in the back room, but rather give their store associates a handheld, hook it into the e-commerce platform, allow scanning capabilities to get to the product page, and offer various fulfillment options. You know, the head of digital says it wasn't about incremental sales, it was about just testing innovation and moving the risk line a little bit and being a little bit disagreeable. I do see, is that Greg Gerard from IDC? Please go right ahead.
Thanks very much. Hello. This is a fascinating conversation. It started as a conversation about digitizing the store, right? But it's really expanded beyond that. It's you've really gone into enterprise integration and actually then out to business partners. The example of customizing the clubs, going to Ping and so forth. So isn't it, when you try to digitize the store and provide something that's unified, you just open up the Pandora's box of
transforming the enterprise. Yeah, it's funny you say that because the research hypothesis started exactly that way, Greg, in terms of digitizing the store, and then we've realized that has created the impetus for more of a, excuse me, Tom, omni-channel platform or a single platform to make this happen. And that's really the aha moment as retailers, and Ashlee, please agree or disagree, but as retailers look to digitize their store, it's opening up this whole conversation about, gosh, why do I want to put this silo again in my store when I have this opportunity to rethink the way I architect my business?
Yeah, I agree completely. I think in some ways it's very simple, right? I need to have this one layer that's customer facing, both internal and external, and which is, you know, e-commerce and my POS. You know, can I have one layer that everybody can interact with for their needs? I have this middle layer that is order management. Where is my order? And that sounds like it's really simple. It's really complicated. It's the entire supply chain aspect of it and all the different constituents that have to participate. But it is the middle layer. And then I've got everything financial. You know, and there's tons of things that are related to that. And when you think about it like that, it's very simple. The reality is the marketplace does not exist with that thinking right now today, unless you want to go into like an SAP model. But even SAP, you have SAP proper, and then you have all the acquisitions. And so they are exactly the same as the best in breed marketplace. There's not a, in my opinion, single platform today that I could go buy and plug into my, you know, $1.5 billion company and just make it work. It doesn't exist.
Right. So just in closing, Tom, if you could, obviously there's a lot of change going on and there's a lot of uncertainty and it's still somewhat of a nascent market, especially on the technology side. How does NRF approach this? What can those in the audience do to partner with NRF and kind of move this forward as an industry?
Right. I think, well, certainly one of the first things is we like to try to pick up on these types of emerging trends and get some reports out quickly, get the collective thought leadership of the industry out there. The other side you mentioned, ARTS, that I manage ARTS, and for those that don't know ARTS, it's the Association for Retail Technology Standards. So ARTS is very focused on driving this type of change and this innovation, you know, not necessarily through standards, but providing the thought leadership type white papers out there of how to do things, how do you look at this early on, and then also providing the technology in terms of, for example, XML schemas for how we integrate these types of systems so that they are flowing data back and forth seamlessly. And the third group is, I would say, you should be leveraging my CIO council. I mean, the collective thought leadership of those guys and the knowledge that they have of the industry, and not just technology, but of the business and the needs of the business to serve this customer can really help guide the industry on the types of solutions that we need to see come into the market.
That's great. So I think we're out of time, so I'm going to ask everybody here to indulge us for one moment. We want to do the first GRC selfie. I know I'm no Ellen DeGeneres, and trust me, I'm not getting sponsored by Samsung to do this, but why don't we turn around here? Do you want to do it with Terry? You think we should go down? Can we do it with Terry? Let's
do a selfie.
Sure.
We gotta be cool.
Now let's, again, I don't have many followers yet, but you can go to #RetailRobGarf and let's see how many retweets we can get here. And let's get and come on in
the
here.
Longest arm.
Let's see how we do here.
I'll do this.
Get in there, Tom. Wait, there we go. All right, one more just in case. All right. So hopefully you make this a trend, and thank you very much.
Thanks, Rob.